You've heard about witches and fairy tales, right? Well, what if I told you there are spiritual witches all around us? But here's the kicker. If you're one of the chosen ones, these witches can't touch you. Sounds crazy, doesn't it? But stick with me, because this isn't about magic wands or pointy hats. This is about real spiritual power that can change your life. Now, you might be thinking, what's the big deal about these witches anyway? Well, let me tell you. If you don't know about them, they can mess up your life in ways you can't even imagine. They can drain your energy, cloud your mind, and even keep you from reaching your true potential. But here's the good news. If you're a chosen one, you have a superpower against these witches. You can spot them, fight them off, and come out stronger than ever. Okay, so what's this chosen one business all about? Don't worry, I'm not talking about some exclusive club that only special people can join. Being a chosen one is actually something that's open to everyone. It's all about your spiritual awareness and your connection to something bigger than yourself. Think of it this way. Have you ever met someone who just seems to have their life together? They're not necessarily rich or famous, but they've got this inner peace and strength that shines through. That's what being a chosen one looks like in real life. So how do you become chosen? It's not about being perfect or never making mistakes. It's about being open to spiritual growth and willing to face the challenges that come your way. It's about choosing to see the world through spiritual eyes and recognizing the unseen forces at work in our lives. Let me give you an example. Think about Sarah, a regular mom who works at the local grocery store. On the surface, she might not seem special, but Sarah has this amazing ability to stay calm in any situation. When her kids are fighting, when her boss is being unfair, or when her car breaks down, Sarah doesn't lose her cool. She taps into an inner strength that helps her navigate life's storms. That's what being a chosen one looks like. Or consider Mike, a college student struggling with anxiety. Mike decided to start meditating and exploring his spiritual side. Slowly but surely, he noticed a change. His anxiety started to lessen, and he found himself making better decisions. He became more in tune with his intuition and started attracting positive people and opportunities into his life. That's another example of a chosen one in action. Being chosen isn't about being better than anyone else. It's about recognizing the spiritual dimension of life and choosing to engage with it. It's about developing a connection with a higher power, whatever that means to you, and allowing that connection to guide and protect you. Now, you might be wondering, how do I know if I'm chosen? Well, here's the thing. If you're asking that question, if you're curious about spiritual matters, if you're reading this right now, chances are you're already on the path to becoming a chosen one. It's not about being picked by some external force. It's about you choosing to awaken your spiritual self. Now, let's talk about these spiritual witches. When I say witches, I'm not talking about women riding broomsticks or casting spells. These are spiritual challenges, negative energies, or harmful thought patterns that can hold us back in life. They're like invisible obstacles that many people face without even realizing it. These witches are sneaky. They don't announce themselves with a cackle or a puff of smoke. They creep into our lives slowly, often disguised as normal thoughts or everyday problems. But for those who aren't spiritually aware, these witches can cause real damage over time. The thing is, these witches aren't all-powerful. They have a weakness. They can't stand up to the light of spiritual awareness. That's where being a chosen one comes in. When you're spiritually awake, you have a natural defense against these witches. It's like having a shield that these negative energies just can't penetrate. But here's the important part. Even if you're not sure whether you're a chosen one yet, learning about these witches is the first step in protecting yourself against them. Knowledge is power, especially in the spiritual realm. The more you understand about these spiritual challenges, the better equipped you'll be to face them. So, are you ready to learn about the first two of these spiritual witches? Buckle up, because this is where things get really interesting. Let's talk about the first witch, the witch of self-doubt. This nasty little spirit is probably the most common of all the spiritual witches, and it's one that almost everyone has faced at some point in their lives. The witch of self-doubt whispers in your ear, telling you that you're not good enough, smart enough, or talented enough to achieve your dreams. It's that voice in your head that says, "Who do you think you are to even try?" This which feeds on your insecurities and grows stronger every time you listen to its lies. For regular folks, this which can be devastating. It can keep you stuck in a job you hate because you don't believe you can find something better. It can stop you from asking out that person you like because you think they're out of your league. It can even keep you from trying new things because you're afraid of failing. But here's where being a chosen one makes all the difference. Chosen ones have a special ability to recognize the witch of self-doubt for what it is, a liar. They understand that self-doubt is just a feeling, not a fact. When this witch tries to whisper its poison, a chosen one can stand firm in their self-belief. Take Maria, for example. Maria always dreamed of starting her own business, but for years, the witch of self-doubt held her back. "You don't know anything about running a business," it would say. "You'll just fail and lose all your money." For a long time, Maria listened to this witch and stayed in her safe, but unfulfilling job. But then Maria started on her spiritual journey. She began to recognize that voice of doubt for what it was, not her true self, but a negative energy trying to hold her back. She started to challenge those thoughts. "Maybe I don't know everything about running a business," she'd think, "but I can learn. And even if I fail, at least I'll have tried." With this new mindset, Maria finally took the leap. She started small, learning as she went, and guess what? Her business flourished. Not because everything was perfect or easy, but because she no longer let self-doubt paralyze her. That's the power of being a chosen one when faced with the witch of self-doubt. It's not that chosen ones never feel doubt, they do. But they have the spiritual tools to recognize it, challenge it, and move forward despite it. So how can you start to fight back against this witch, even if you're not sure you're a chosen one yet? Start by paying attention to your thoughts. When you hear that voice of doubt, pause and ask yourself, is this really true? Or is it just the witch of self-doubt talking? Simply recognizing these thoughts for what they are can start to weaken their power over you. Remember, you are capable of so much more than you think. Don't let the witch of self-doubt rob you of your dreams. You have the power to choose faith in yourself over fear and doubt. Now, let's move on to the second witch, the witch of comparison. This tricky spirit is like the evil twin of the witch of self-doubt, and in today's world of social media, it's more powerful than ever. The witch of comparison is always whispering, "Look at how much better everyone else is doing." It makes you feel like you're constantly falling behind, like everyone else has it all figured out while you're struggling to keep up. This witch thrives on making you feel less than, inadequate, and forever playing catch-up. For most people, this witch can be absolutely crushing. It can make you feel like a failure even when you're doing well, simply because someone else seems to be doing better. It can rob you of joy in your achievements because you're always looking at what others have that you don't. It can even make you give up on your dreams because you think you'll never be as good as so-and-so. But once again, chosen ones have a special defense against this witch. They understand a fundamental truth, that everyone's journey is unique. And comparing your chapter 1 to someone else's chapter 20 is never fair or helpful. Let's look at the story of Alex. Alex was a talented artist, but the witch of comparison was always at his shoulder. Every time he looked at other artists' work online, he felt discouraged. "Their art is so much better," the witch would whisper. "You'll never be that good." For a while, Alex almost gave up on his art altogether. But as Alex began to awaken spiritually, he started to see things differently. He realized that every artist's journey is unique, and that the only fair comparison is with his past self. He began to focus on his own growth and progress rather than measuring himself against others. With this new perspective, Alex's art flourished, not because he suddenly became better than everyone else, but because he was free to create without the burden of constant comparison. He found his own unique style and voice, something that never would have happened if he kept trying to copy others. That's the power of being a chosen one when faced with the witch of comparison. Chosen ones understand that their worth isn't determined by how they measure up to others, but by their own growth and the unique gifts they bring to the world. So how can you start to fight back against this witch? Start by being mindful of when you're making comparisons. When you catch yourself doing it, Pause and remind yourself that you're seeing only a small part of someone else's story. Focus instead on your own journey and progress. Also, practice gratitude. When you're thankful for what you have and what you've achieved, it's harder for the witch of comparison to make you feel less than. Remember, there will always be people who seem to be doing better in some way, but that doesn't diminish your own worth or achievements. You are on your own unique path, and that path is valuable and important. Don't let the witch of comparison trick you into thinking otherwise. Your journey is yours alone, and it's beautiful in its own right. Now that we've talked about these first two witches, you might be wondering, how do I protect myself? How do I become one of these chosen ones? Well, the first and most powerful step is simply awareness. By reading this, by learning about these spiritual witches, you're already starting to awaken your spiritual self. You see, these witches thrive in darkness. They love it when we're unaware of their existence because then they can influence us without us even realizing it. But the moment you shine a light on them, the moment you become aware of their tricks, they start to lose their power. Think about it like this. Have you ever been in a dark room and you thought you saw something scary in the corner? But then when you turned on the light, you realized it was just a pile of clothes? That's exactly what awareness does to these spiritual witches. It turns on the light, and suddenly what seemed scary and powerful is revealed for what it really is, just an illusion. Being a chosen one isn't about being perfect or never facing these witches. It's about being aware of them, recognizing them when they show up, and having the tools to deal with them. And the good news is, this is something anyone can learn to do. Start by paying attention to your thoughts and feelings. When you notice negative patterns, like constantly doubting yourself or always feeling like you're not as good as others, that's your cue. That's when you can say, "Aha, I see you," which of self-doubt or comparison. But I'm not falling for your tricks anymore. Remember, these witches can't hurt you when you see them for what they are. Their power lies in deception, in making you believe their lies. But once you're aware, once you can recognize their voice, you can choose not to listen. And here's the really exciting part. The more you practice this awareness, the stronger your spiritual muscles get. It's like going to the gym for your soul. At first, it might be hard to spot these witches, just like it's hard to lift heavy weights when you first start working out. But the more you practice, the easier it gets. So don't get discouraged if you find yourself still struggling with self-doubt or comparison. That's normal, even for chosen ones. The difference is, now you have the awareness to recognize what's happening. You have the power to pause, take a breath, and remind yourself of the truth, that you are worthy, that your journey is unique and valuable. This awareness, this ability to recognize and challenge these spiritual witches, is your superpower. It's what sets chosen ones apart. And the beautiful thing is, it's a superpower that's available to everyone. All it takes is the willingness to open your eyes, to pay attention, and to choose a different way of thinking. So as we move forward to learn about the other spiritual witches, remember this: knowledge is power. Each witch you learn about is another light switch you can flip on in your spiritual house. And the brighter that house gets, the less power these witches have over you. You're already on the path to becoming a chosen one, simply by being here, by being willing to learn and grow. Trust in that. Believe in your own power to overcome these spiritual challenges. Because at the end of the day, that belief, that faith in yourself and in your spiritual journey, is the most powerful witch repellent of all. Let's dive into our third spiritual witch, the witch of negativity. This sneaky spirit is like a dark cloud that follows you around, always ready to rain on your parade. It's the voice that says, "Why bother? Everything's just going to go wrong anyway." The witch of negativity is a master of turning molehills into mountains. Got a small problem at work? This witch will convince you it's the end of your career. Had a minor disagreement with a friend? Suddenly, this witch is whispering that all your relationships are doomed. For most people, this witch can be incredibly draining. It sucks the joy out of life, making everything seem harder and less worthwhile than it really is. It can lead to a self-fulfilling prophecy. When you expect the worst, you often get it, not because the world is against you, but because you've stopped trying or noticing the good things. But here's where chosen ones have an edge. They've learned to recognize the witch of negativity for what it is, a distorted lens that makes everything look darker than it really is. Chosen ones understand that while negative things do happen, they don't define the whole of life. Take the story of Lisa. Lisa used to be what her friends called a negative Nancy. She always expected the worst and often found it. If it was sunny, she'd complain it was too hot. If it rained, she'd moan about the mud. The witch of negativity had her firmly in its grasp. But as Lisa began her spiritual journey, she started to notice this pattern. She realized that her constant negativity wasn't protecting her from bad things. It was actually making her miss out on the good things. She decided to challenge this witch. Lisa started small. Each day, she tried to find one good thing to focus on, no matter how tiny. At first, it was hard. The witch of negativity would try to drown out any positive thoughts. But Lisa persisted. Slowly, she began to see more and more good things in her life. The turning point came when Lisa lost her job. In the past, this would have sent her into a spiral of despair. But this time, she chose to see it differently. This is an opportunity for a fresh start, she told herself. And you know what? It was. Lisa used this time to pursue a career she'd always dreamed of but never dared to try. That's the power of being a chosen one when faced with the witch of negativity. It's not that chosen ones never face negative situations, they do. But they have the ability to see beyond the negative, to find opportunity in challenges, and to maintain hope even in dark times. So how can you start to fight back against this witch? Start by becoming aware of your thought patterns. When something happens, notice your immediate reaction. Is it always negative? Challenge yourself to find an alternative, more positive view. Practice gratitude. Each day, try to find at least 3 things you're thankful for. They don't have to be big things: a good cup of coffee, a smile from a stranger, a beautiful sunset. The more you look for good things, the more you'll find them. Remember, positivity isn't about ignoring problems or pretending everything is perfect. It's about maintaining a balanced perspective, seeing both the challenges and the opportunities in life. Don't let the witch of negativity rob you of the joy and beauty that exist alongside life's difficulties. Now, let's meet our 4th spiritual witch, the witch of fear. This witch is like a prison guard, always trying to keep you locked in your comfort zone. It's the voice that says, "Don't try that. It's too risky. Stay where it's safe." The witch of fear is an expert at creating worst-case scenarios. Thinking about asking for a raise? This witch will paint a vivid picture of you getting fired instead. Considering starting a new relationship? The witch of fear will remind you of every heartbreak you've ever had. For most people, this witch can be paralyzing. It keeps them stuck in unfulfilling jobs, relationships, and life situations because the fear of the unknown seems worse than the discomfort of the familiar. It robs people of opportunities for growth and happiness because they're too afraid to take that first step. But chosen ones have a special insight when it comes to the witch of fear. They understand that fear is often just false evidence appearing real. They know that while fear can be a useful warning system, it shouldn't be the driver of their lives. Let's look at the story of Mark. Mark had always dreamed of traveling the world, but the witch of fear kept him firmly rooted in his hometown. What if you get lost? What if you run out of money? What if something terrible happens? The witch would whisper. For years, Mark listened to these fears and stayed put, watching other people live his dream through social media. But as Mark began to awaken spiritually, he started to question these fears. He realized that yes, bad things could happen if he traveled, but bad things could happen if he stayed home, too. And by staying home, he was guaranteeing that he'd miss out on the amazing experiences he dreamed of. So Mark decided to challenge the witch of fear. He started small, taking short trips to nearby cities. Each time he faced a fear and survived, he grew stronger. Finally, he took the plunge and booked a ticket for a solo trip around the world. Was it scary? Absolutely. Did everything go perfectly? Of course not. But Mark discovered that he was capable of handling far more than he'd ever given himself credit for. He made friends from all over the world, saw breathtaking sights, and grew in ways he never could have if he'd stayed in his comfort zone. That's the power of being a chosen one when faced with the witch of fear. It's not that chosen ones never feel fear. They do. But they've learned to feel the fear and do it anyway. They understand that on the other side of fear is often where the magic happens. So how can you start to fight back against this witch? Start by examining your fears. Are they based on real, immediate dangers, or are they just what-ifs about the future? Remember, not all fear is bad. It's there to protect us. But when fear stops you from growing and pursuing your dreams, it's time to challenge it. Try this. When you feel afraid of doing something, ask yourself, what's the worst that could happen? Then ask, what's the best that could happen? Often, you'll find that the potential rewards far outweigh the risks. Start small. Face little fears every day. It could be as simple as trying a new food or striking up a conversation with a stranger. Each time you do something that scares you, you're weakening the witch of fear's hold on you. Remember, courage isn't the absence of fear. It's feeling the fear and moving forward anyway. Don't let the witch of fear keep you from living your fullest life. The world has so much to offer, just on the other side of your comfort zone. Let's turn our attention to the fifth spiritual witch, the witch of procrastination. This tricky spirit is like a cozy blanket on a cold day, always tempting you to put things off just a little bit longer. It's the voice that says, you can do it tomorrow. Why rush? There's plenty of time. The witch of procrastination is sneaky because it often disguises itself as self-care or prudence. You're too tired to work on that project now. You should rest first. Or, you need to do more research before you start. It's better to be prepared. These sound like reasonable thoughts, but when they become a pattern, they can seriously derail your goals and dreams. For most people, this witch can be incredibly frustrating. It leaves them always rushing at the last minute, never giving their best effort because they're out of time. It fills them with regret for all the things they could have done if they just started sooner. And worst of all, it keeps them from achieving their full potential because they're always playing catch-up instead of moving forward. But chosen ones have a special insight when it comes to the witch of procrastination. They understand that action breeds motivation, not the other way around. They know that perfect conditions never arrive, and that the best time to start is almost always now. Let's look at the story of Emily. Emily had always wanted to write a novel, but year after year, she found reasons not to start. I need to outline it perfectly first, she'd say. Or, I'll start when things calm down at work. The witch of procrastination had her believing that someday, the perfect time would come and writing would be easy. As Emily began her spiritual journey, she started to see this pattern. She realized that she'd been waiting for inspiration to strike, for motivation to appear magically, but it never did. So she decided to challenge this witch. Emily set herself a small goal: write for just 15 minutes every day, no matter what. Some days, those 15 minutes were a struggle, and she wrote nothing but gibberish. Other days, she'd get in the flow and write for hours. But the important thing was, she was writing. To her surprise, Emily found that the more she wrote, the more she wanted to write. The motivation she'd been waiting for didn't come before she started. It came as a result of her starting. Within a year, Emily had a first draft of her novel. Was it perfect? No, but it was real, which was more than she'd had all those years of waiting for the perfect moment. That's the power of being a chosen one when faced with the witch of procrastination. It's not that chosen ones never feel the temptation to put things off. They do. But they've learned to recognize that temptation for what it is, and they choose action over delay. So how can you start to fight back against this witch? Start by breaking big tasks into smaller, manageable chunks. Instead of write a novel, make your goal, write for 15 minutes. Instead of get in shape, aim to do 10 push-ups today. Use the 5-minute rule. When you're tempted to procrastinate, tell yourself you'll work on the task for just 5 minutes. Often, you'll find that once you start, you want to keep going. But even if you do stop after 5 minutes, that's 5 minutes of progress you wouldn't have had otherwise. Create accountability for yourself. Tell a friend about your goals, or better yet, find an accountability partner who's working towards similar goals. Knowing someone else is checking on your progress can be a powerful motivator. Remember, done is better than perfect. The witch of procrastination often uses perfectionism as a tool to keep you from starting. But remember, you can't improve on nothing. It's better to have an imperfect first draft than a perfect idea that never leaves your head. Don't let the witch of procrastination rob you of your dreams. The time to start is now. Your future self will thank you for the actions you take today. Now, let's explore our sixth spiritual witch, the witch of attachment. This clever spirit is like a collector, always encouraging you to hold on to things, people, and ideas, even when they no longer serve you. It's the voice that says, you can't let go of this. What if you need it someday? The witch of attachment thrives on our fear of loss and change. It convinces us that happiness lies in holding on to things, rather than in growth and new experiences. This witch can make us cling to outdated beliefs, toxic relationships, or material possessions that weigh us down. For many people, this witch can cause a lot of suffering. It keeps them stuck in the past, unable to move forward. It fills their lives, and often their homes, with clutter, both physical and emotional. It prevents them from embracing new opportunities because they're too busy holding on to what they already have, even if it's no longer good for them. But chosen ones have a special understanding when it comes to the witch of attachment. They recognize that life is a constant flow of change, and that true peace comes not from holding on, but from learning to let go gracefully. Consider the story of Tom. Tom had always been a bit of a pack rat. His house was filled with things he might need someday. He stayed in a job he hated because it was familiar. He even held on to friendships that had turned toxic because he was afraid of being alone. As Tom began his spiritual journey, he started to see how the witch of attachment was controlling his life. He realized that his attachments weren't bringing him security or happiness. They were holding him back. So Tom decided to challenge this witch. He started small, decluttering one drawer in his house. It was hard at first, but as he let go of things, he felt lighter. Encouraged, he moved on to bigger things. He left his unfulfilling job to pursue a passion. He had honest conversations with friends, strengthening some relationships and letting others go. To his surprise, Tom found that the less he held on to, the more fulfilled he felt. He had more space, both in his home and in his heart, for new experiences and genuine connections. That's the power of being a chosen one when faced with the witch of attachment. It's not that chosen ones never feel attached to things or people. They do. But they've learned to hold these attachments lightly, to appreciate what they have while it's there, and to let go when it's time. So how can you start to fight back against this witch? Start by practicing mindfulness. Pay attention to your attachments. Are they bringing you joy and growth, or are they holding you back? Practice gratitude for what you have now, but also cultivate trust in the future. Remember that letting go of one thing often makes space for something even better to enter your life. Start small. Maybe declutter one area of your home, or spend a day without your phone. Notice how it feels to let go, even temporarily. Remember, the goal isn't to have no attachments at all. It's to have healthy attachments, to appreciate what you have without being controlled by the fear of losing it. Don't let the witch of attachment keep you from growing and evolving. Life has so much to offer when we open our hands and hearts to receive it. Let's turn our attention to the seventh spiritual witch, the witch of judgment. This harsh spirit is like a stern critic, always ready to point out flaws in yourself and others. It's the voice that says, "You're not good enough," or "Look at them. They're doing it all wrong." The witch of judgment thrives on comparison and criticism. It convinces us that we can feel better about ourselves by finding fault in others, or that we can improve ourselves through harsh self-criticism. This witch can poison relationships, create unnecessary conflicts, and erode self-esteem. For many people, this witch can create a constant state of dissatisfaction. Nothing is ever good enough. Not themselves, not others, not the world around them. It can lead to isolation, as people push others away with their critical attitude. It can also lead to perfectionism and burnout, as people drive themselves too hard in an attempt to avoid self-judgment. But chosen ones have a special insight when it comes to the witch of judgment. They understand that true growth comes from acceptance and compassion, not criticism. They know that everyone, including themselves, is on a unique journey of learning and growth. Take the story of Rachel. Rachel had always been known as the perfectionist in her family and friend group. She held herself to impossibly high standards and was quick to point out when others fell short. But despite her accomplishments, she never felt satisfied or truly happy. As Rachel began her spiritual awakening, she started to see how the witch of judgment was affecting her life. She realized that her constant criticism wasn't making her or anyone else better. It was just making everyone, including herself, miserable. So Rachel decided to challenge this witch. She started practicing self-compassion, treating herself with the same kindness she'd show a good friend. When she caught herself judging others, she'd pause and try to understand their perspective instead. To her surprise, Rachel found that the less she judged, the more connected she felt to herself and others. She became more approachable, and her relationships deepened. She even found she was more productive at work because she wasn't paralyzed by the fear of not being perfect. That's the power of being a chosen one when faced with the witch of judgment. It's not that chosen ones never have critical thoughts, they do. But they've learned to observe these thoughts without being controlled by them, and to choose compassion over criticism. So how can you start to fight back against this witch? Start by becoming aware of your judgmental thoughts. When you notice yourself criticizing yourself or others, pause. Ask yourself, is this judgment helpful? Is it kind? Is it necessary? Practice empathy. When you're tempted to judge someone, try to put yourself in their shoes. Remember that everyone is fighting battles you know nothing about. Cultivate self-compassion. Treat yourself with the same kindness you'd show a good friend. Remember that making mistakes is a natural part of being human and an essential part of growth. Remember, the goal isn't to never have judgmental thoughts. It's to recognize them when they come and to choose a more compassionate response. Don't let the witch of judgment rob you of connection and peace. The world becomes a much kinder place when we learn to suspend judgment. Finally, let's meet our eighth and last spiritual witch, the witch of distraction. This playful spirit is like a mischievous child, always trying to pull your attention away from what's truly important. It's the voice that says, check your phone one more time, or just one more episode won't hurt. The witch of distraction thrives in our modern, fast-paced world. It uses the constant barrage of notifications, entertainment options, and busy schedules to keep us from focusing on our true priorities. This witch can prevent us from being present in our own lives, from achieving our goals, and from connecting deeply with others. For many people, this witch can create a constant sense of busyness without productivity. They feel like they're always doing something, but never getting anywhere important. It can lead to a shallow existence, where life becomes a series of distractions rather than meaningful experiences. But chosen ones have a special understanding when it comes to the witch of distraction. They recognize that their attention is one of their most valuable resources, and they've learned to direct it intentionally. They know that true fulfillment comes from being fully present in their lives, not from constant stimulation. Consider the story of David. David was always proud of his ability to multitask. He'd watch TV while working, scroll through social media during conversations, and constantly jump between tasks at work. He thought he was being efficient, but he always felt scattered and unfulfilled. As David began his spiritual journey, he started to see how the witch of distraction was affecting his life. He realized that by trying to do everything at once, he wasn't fully experiencing anything. His work was mediocre, his relationships were superficial, and he couldn't remember the last time he'd felt truly peaceful. So David decided to challenge this witch. He started practicing mindfulness, focusing on one task at a time. He set boundaries around his technology use, creating phone-free zones and times. He even tried meditation, learning to sit with his own thoughts instead of constantly seeking distraction. To his surprise, David found that the more he focused, the more he accomplished. He felt more connected in his relationships because he was truly present. He even enjoyed his leisure time more because he was fully immersed in it, rather than half thinking about work or scrolling through his phone. That's the power of being a chosen one when faced with the witch of distraction. It's not that chosen ones never feel the pull of distraction, they do. but they've learned to recognize it and consciously choose where to direct their attention. So how can you start to fight back against this witch? Start by becoming aware of your distractions. Notice when you reach for your phone or switch tasks. Is it necessary or is it just a habit? Practice single tasking. When you're working, just work. When you're eating, just eat. When you're with someone, be fully with them. You might be amazed at how much more enjoyable and effective this can be. Create boundaries around technology. Maybe have a no phones at the dinner table rule, or no screens for the first and last hour of your day. Cultivate moments of stillness in your day. It could be through meditation, a quiet cup of tea, or a short walk without your phone. Learning to be comfortable with quiet can make you more resilient to the lure of constant distraction. Remember, the goal isn't to never be distracted. It's to be in control of your attention rather than at the mercy of every distraction that comes along. Don't let the witch of distraction rob you of the richness of your life. There's so much depth and beauty to experience when we learn to be truly present. As we come to the end of our journey through these 8 spiritual witches, you might be feeling a mix of emotions. Perhaps you're recognizing how these witches have influenced your life. Maybe you're feeling empowered by the knowledge of how to combat them. Or you might be wondering, am I really a chosen one? Here's the beautiful truth. If you've read this far, if you're interested in growing spiritually and overcoming these challenges, then yes, you are a chosen one. Being chosen isn't about being perfect or never struggling with these witches. It's about being aware of them and choosing to face them head-on. Remember, these witches, self-doubt, comparison, negativity, fear, procrastination, attachment, judgment, and distraction. They're not here to torment you. They're here to teach you. Each time you recognize their influence and choose a different path, you grow stronger. You become more of who you truly are. Being a chosen one doesn't mean these witches will never bother you again. They'll still show up, trying their old tricks. But now you have the awareness to see them for what they are. You have the tools to choose differently. And each time you do, you're reaffirming your chosen one status. So what now? Start small. Pick one witch that you feel has the strongest hold on you right now. Spend the next week really paying attention to when it shows up in your life. Practice the techniques we've discussed for combating it. Remember, progress, not perfection, is the goal. Share what you've learned with others. As you become more aware of these spiritual witches, you might start noticing how they affect people around you. Gently share your insights. Help others see that they too have the power to overcome these challenges. Most importantly, be patient and kind with yourself. This is a journey, not a destination. There will be days when you feel like you're winning against all 8 witches, and days when you feel like they're all ganging up on you. That's okay. That's normal. What matters is that you keep showing up, keep trying, keep growing. You are a chosen one, not because you're perfect, but because you're willing to look at yourself honestly, to face your challenges, and to choose growth over comfort. The very fact that you're engaging with these ideas shows that you're on the path. So go forth with confidence. You have the power to shape your reality, to overcome these spiritual witches, and to live a life of purpose and fulfillment. The journey may not always be easy, but it will always be worth it. You are chosen, you are capable, and you are on your way to becoming the best version of yourself.